I'd like to welcome you to Syed's presentation. And I would like to kick it over to Jorge.
Thank you, Curtis. My name is Jorge Bertram. I'm part of the SIETAR Florida board. I'm in charge of programs. I'm the chair of the programs, and I'm so we're always looking for different programs and people to participate, to share their experiences, because being an intercultural is part of sharing our experiences. Okay, so I think that's very, very, very important. I'd like to introduce my friend Syed. We've been working together since last year in one interesting project. I have his long biography here, but I'm gonna be short, you know. One of the most important things that I've noticed about Syed is his passion for what he does. He really is very passionate. He really likes what he does, and he does it with a lot of love. That's very, very important in our professional lives. He's worked over 25 years through key addresses. He worked in corporate. I think I'm a little bit older than him. I was 30 years overseas, so through the corporate life, so I know how it is. He worked in Exxon, and you've done a lot of intercultural training, seminars, workshops, and more important, that he's the author of a book, Crossing Cultures with Grace and Humor. And Syed is a great example of grace and humor. So it's my pleasure to introduce Syed today to all you folks, and I'm sure you really enjoy and learn a lot from him.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Thanks for a wonderful introduction. And Curtis, also thank you very much for both of you inviting me here. So, hello everyone. Are you ready to have some fun? We're going to have some fun, okay? Let's get going. We'll start with the expectations first. Let me do mute all first, so then we don't have any background noises. You can still hear me okay? Thumbs up? Yes, okay. If you need to speak, feel free to unmute yourself. However, I just muted everyone because we were hearing some background noises. Let's set some expectations first. This is going to be an interactive session. I do not have a deck of slides to go over. So the more fun the session would be, the more you would interact and engage. So it's going to be interactive. I only have one slide that I will show near the end of the program. How we are going to participate is if we give chance to everyone to talk, then it's going to take too long. Instead, what we will do is we will use chat for our speaking. So whenever I'll put a question for you, you're going to use chat to respond. And we have lots of people here with lots of experience. So that way we'll also get some collective wisdom. So you will walk away, not what I plan to share, but also walk away with other people who are in the room, in this virtual room, to share as well. So keep that in mind. This program is 75 minutes long. It's not 60 minutes. So there would be some things happening in the last 15 minutes as well. I just want to let you know, because normally people just assume it's an hour long. So I just want to get that out of the way in terms of expectations. So this program, the session is in 3 parts, very clear 3 parts. We are in the first part. In this first part, what I will do is, as the session has been promised by the title, I will share a personal story. Then I will ask all of you to respond what cultural value we are talking about by typing your response in chat, all of you. When we're done with the story, we go to the next, we go to the next, we go to the next. We will see how many stories we can do in about 20-25 minutes. That's the first section. The second section is you will go into breakout rooms, 3 people, at least 3 people in each breakout room. You will try to recreate what I did. Each one of you will come up with a personal story and share that, and ask the other 2 people to interpret your story in terms of cultural values being displayed in that story. So each one of you would have 5 minutes to do that in your breakout rooms. Once you are done with the breakout rooms, you come back to the main room. That's where we will start the debriefing, what you thought, your questions, your opinion, all those sharing that you would do when we debrief. And at the end of that debrief, I will also share that one single slide I have, my top 10 ideas for storytelling. That's our plan. That's our outline. Any comments, questions before we dive in? Going once, going twice. If you really want to speak up instead of typing it in chat, just go ahead and click the raise hand button. You know where the raise hand button is? If you click reactions, at the bottom, there are a bunch of buttons. All the way to the right, there's a button called reaction. If you click reaction, there is a button called raise hands. If I don't see raise hands, like Curtis is raising his hand, Curtis or Jorge will remind me to, so if I see raise hand, then whenever the right time comes, I may ask you to speak up. However, we would do a lot of interaction, but mainly use chat so we can maximize our interaction. Sounds good? Give me thumbs up if we're ready for stories. Okay, first story. And let me put in chat what you will do in general for each story I will share. So let me put that in here. So for each story, when I say, okay, I'm done with my story, type in chat. You will be coming up with what cultural value is being reflected. By the way, there are no right or wrong answers. We are not talking about science, computers. We are talking about human behavior. That's an art. So all answers are correct. We are all trying to learn all different nuances of cultural differences. However, I would just put something there that to say story one or something about the story, so you can type your responses for that story, then I do the next one and we'll go down. Okay, here's my first story. I grew up in Pakistan. I worked in Saudi Arabia before coming to the United States. When I was working in Saudi Arabia, my brother also chose to go to Saudi Arabia. So he worked there a lot longer. I decided to come to the US, but he decided to stay in Saudi Arabia. Now, keep in mind, both of us grew up in the same household in Pakistan. He has been living in Saudi Arabia for a long time. I'm living in the US for a long time. Several years ago, I remember he calls me and he says, how are you? How is Joyce? How is Daniel? How is Sophia? How is family? How is work? How is everyone's health? On and all those questions. I say, yes, everyone is good. Everyone is good. Yes, 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 yes. Finally, he asked his question, what he was calling for. I said, give me 5 minutes. Just call me in 5 minutes and I'll have the answer for you. He calls after 5 minutes and he begins to ask all those questions all over again. I just lost it. I said, Kamran, my situation has not changed in 5 minutes. So I'm going to put here number one, brother. Go ahead and respond in chat. What cultural values do you see being reflected in this story? This is the time all of you participate. So I'm really expecting 16 responses in chat because there are a total of 17 if I exclude myself. And if you have typed your answer, look at other people's answers. Our learning will occur through our collective wisdom here. Yeah, relationship versus task, family, relationship, universalism, particularism, relationship, interdependence, relationship, family, collectivism, communication, collectivism. Yeah, courtesy. See how people are using different words to describe the idea. So as you are presenting to other people, see, you get lots of different words because some words trigger something for some people, some words trigger something for some other people. All same words don't really impact all of them. So now people are getting very, very clear. And of course, in real life, there is no such thing as a single cultural difference taking place. All of us have layers and layers and layers and layers. So however, there would be some that would be kind of a major cultural difference, but there are so many other, and you cannot really point it out. When I was telling the story, I was mainly thinking of that most of you are saying individualism versus collectivism. Under that, of course, individualists are more task-oriented, collectivists are more family-oriented. So that's, and then building rapport, spending time up front before you get to the main topic is a lot more important. Even if we grew up in the same household, US said, resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. So I got assimilated, and I just don't have that patience that I used to have when I was growing up in Pakistan. Of course, the person from Egypt can really relate to that, what I went through Pakistan. But even Saudi Arabia, even more than Pakistan, they would not get to the topic till they go through all that. So, okay. Let's move on to the story number 2. So when I was growing up in Pakistan, we did not have a telephone. And there was no concept of making an appointment with other people. So people come to our door and knock the door, and I go out and see them, and they say, "Is your father at home?" And my father instructed me, you do not tell them I'm at home or I'm not at home. Your job is to ask their name, come back inside, tell me their name, then I will tell you to tell them if I'm at home or I'm not at home. So that's what I did. As a matter of fact, we even have a joke that the boy is asked to go and ask the name of the person at the door. A boy comes and tells the father the name. Father says, tell him my father is not at home. He goes to the door and says, my father who is inside right now is telling me to tell you that he's not at home right now. Okay, so I'm going to say here, let me go back up. Someone send me direct message. So it got changed to everyone. Number 2, father. Okay, shoot, your time to participate. Story number 2. What do you think is going on? Hierarchy, okay. High contact, saving face. Yeah. Yeah. Good, good, okay. I see a lot of power distance. Keep going, keep going. I need some more. I can also tell you, I will also share with you. Okay, so I have a program just focused on high-low context. So I have stories related to high-low context. I have a program on individualism, collectivism. So I have a list of stories that I use with individualism, collectivism programs. Then I have a list of stories, time related, that I use that with my time presentation, polychronic versus monochronic. And then I have 4 of these programs. The other one is that some people are talking about hierarchy, which is the power distance from Hofstede, large and small power distance. So I have a list of personal stories attached to each one of those differences. So here I will share with you which of the program I use this particular story, which I feel is most connected. However, all of you are correct. You can look at the story different ways and you can find other dimensions as well. But in my mind, what I can use it as a leading situation. So all of the answers I saw there, I mainly use this one for high and low context, because what I'm saying is not what the situation is. However, the guy at the door has figured out. I asked the name, I went inside, I came back, and I said, my father is not at home. It is not about lying, it's about showing the courtesy, as I think Maria earlier on the last one says, showing courtesy. He figured that out, my dad is at home, but telling him he doesn't want to see you is a rude behavior. By saying he's not at home, it's a soft way of saying, go away. But it's a softer, gentle push versus the harsh push. As a matter of fact, I read a book on Korean culture. I don't know if it's true for there or not, but there it's okay for the guy from inside the house to yell out, I am not at home. Yelling from inside the house, I'm not at home. That is okay versus saying, I don't want to see you. Okay, so far so good. Ready for the third story? Give me thumbs up. Okay, good. Feel free to show your videos. So because if you have your video on, I get a lot more energy from you guys. I love energy. Okay, so third story is about, when I was working for ExxonMobil, I had few employees that reported to me in Brazil. So I had an opportunity to go to one of the cities in Brazil called Curitiba often. And of course, Brazilians are a lot more in hospitality compared to the US. Of course, I was in hospitality when I was back in Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, but living in the US long enough, I have forgotten all that hospitality business. I'm just task. So they are so nice. They take you dinner after dinner. They take you to their families. And I will start feeling guilty when they visited. I didn't took them to my home, and now they're taking me to their homes. So one night they took me out for dinner, and they asked me again and again, how is the food? How is the food? Being stupid, direct from America, I ended up saying it's a little salty. I don't know how many of you have experienced Brazilian food. You may have noticed, at least many of us have noticed, and of course it's mentioned in books. In general, Brazilians' amount of salt in their food is a little bit higher than some other countries. So I made a small little comment. I forgot about it. Next door, I'm at work there, and person after person comes and tells me, oh, so your food was salty yesterday. Oh, so your food was salty yesterday. It appears that most of the people on that floor knew not only what I ate, but also it was salty. Okay, let me go back to everyone and type their number 3 before you start typing. So we have a separation of stories. Okay, shoot. As you are typing the answer, if someone is really dying to say something, feel free to speak up as well. However, everyone, please respond in text through chat so we can get response from everyone. Lots of great comments. Okay. Yes. And as you can see, all the responses, even they are so different from each other. If you look at the story from different sides, from different angles, all the responses are correct. And you can use the story in all those different scenarios. And that's the beauty of culture. We are not talking about some hard and fast rules. We are not talking about science, relationship building, directness, curiosity, privacy, all lack thereof. Excellent, excellent. Okay, ready for the next story? Yes, okay. So let's see which one I have next. Okay, so when my mom was visiting me here in the US the first time, and in the kitchen, you know, I said, Mom, this is where we have the fruit. Feel free to enjoy it anytime. Later, I noticed she was not touching anything because I forgot the basic rule of hospitality, living here long enough, that in Pakistan, if you see once, even to your mom, you don't really mean it. You're just saying it. You have to repeat the offer. Then only then you mean it. Otherwise, you're just saying it, but it doesn't mean anything. So here in Houston, later when I was speaking to, sometime I spoke at the International Students, Rice University's International Students Orientation, and I told them the same thing. If you get invited to an American home and they say, let's eat, and it's an open buffet situation, just jump in. If you're going to wait there for second and third offer, you may go hungry. There may not be food any left for you because no one is going to come back and tell you the second time, go and eat. They would assume you just don't want to eat. So let me type here number 4. And I'll say mom. Okay, number 4, mom, go. Okay, another high context, that's from Curtis. Keep going. We have 18 people now, so we'll be looking for 17 responses here. Good. I can't. Yeah. Context, courtesy phrase, good example. Yes, Marcella, as a matter of fact, in my high-low context program, I do use the clip from Joy Luck Club. It's a wonderful, wonderful clip. It's available on YouTube. Just the clip you need to do in your program is available on in Google. And as a matter of fact, I did that program very recently for a women's network group for ExxonMobil, I believe a couple of weeks ago, and I used that clip. Yeah, really wonderful Joy Luck clip in high context, low context program. Excellent, keep going. Yeah, okay, let me take it up and say, before we start the next story, just want to give a little chance, unless someone is just waiting to speak and they're not getting a chance to talk. Going once, going twice. You guys are ready for next story? Okay, let's do the next story. So recently, last year, not last year, time passed so fast, earlier this year, my mother got diagnosed with dementia. She's in Pakistan, lives with my sister. And I'm keeping a tab, we are calling every day. Now I have visited her, she's now much better, but this is a few months ago when it first happened to her. And I'm calling every day, and one day they tell me they're taking her to neurologist tomorrow, and I'm waiting what they find out from neurologist. So the day after, next day I call. So how did the appointment go with neurologist? They said, well, we were ready to step out of the house, but the guest came in. So we did not go. We will go tomorrow. So that was the story number 5. I will say neurologist. Go ahead. As you are responding to these stories, keep in mind to think of one of your stories that you will do in breakout. I'm repeating myself in case some people join, since I said that at the beginning of the program. Once I'm done, you will go into breakout rooms. Each one of you will have 5 minutes to come up with your personal story that you will share and ask the other 2 people to interpret the story for you. So at least think of one. Concept of time, indirectness, relationship, polychronic, altruism. Neil, what does ENBA means?
That was meant to be embarrassed. They were embarrassed.
Oh, okay, embarrassed. Okay, got it. Okay, thanks for clarifying. Oh yeah, I see now you wrote embarrassed there, okay. Yeah, so this one is really a combination of several. First of all, no regard for time. Time has no importance. How dare you show up at my door when I have an appointment with a neurologist for my mother's dementia? That's just not, I mean, I just don't have any sympathy left for that situation because of maybe love for my mom or something. And it's not that easy to get an appointment with a known neurologist to begin with. However, the culture is so strong. First, people are at the door, they cannot be told, we have a doctor appointment, we are leaving. We have to just get there. So that just surprised even me. But that's the culture I came from. So this is what happens. Okay, no boundaries. So it was, to me, it's collectivism. It's pure collectivism, and collectivism has very polychronic time. So this story is so new, I haven't even put in any of my program yet, but I will use it more for collectivism. I also can use it for time, polychronic time as well. Okay, next one. So I was married to an American with British and German heritage. Joyce grew up in Akron, Ohio. We were married for 17 years. We have not been married for many years. So I took her to Pakistan. I said, you need to see where I came from. So we visited, and there was an incident at the beach in Karachi, the Indian Ocean beach. We were sitting on the sand in a circle, and we were eating fried fish. And fried fish is stole like the hot dog stand, kind of a fried fish stand, and they give you newspapers and you sit on the floor in a circle, and we are all eating fish. At one point, she looks at me and said, "Is this some kind of a sick joke?" I'm flabbergasted. I have no idea what she's talking about. I don't know what she's saying. She said it again. "Is this some kind of a sick joke?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "My fish has bones in them." First of all, it didn't even occur to me that she would have issue eating a fish with bones because you're in the situation and everyone else is eating it. Now, she thought only her fish had it. All of our fish had the same amount of bones. They were randomly chosen pieces. And however, over the years, we have learned how to deal with them. We collect them in our mouth on the side, and from time to time, we take them out and put it on the side. Do that so naturally, without making a fuss, without creating a scene, that it looks like that our bone didn't have any fish. Our fish didn't have any bones. So I'm going to say story number was 6. And I'm going to say fish bones. Later on, I found out that her mom gave them a nickel if they could find a bone in their fish. And of course, their fish only came from their refrigerator, freezer. She said, fish was always came from freezer, and we got a nickel if we found a bone in our fish. So her reality was completely different from my reality. I should have had more sense to remember that, but I learned that later on after that. So let's see what we got. Intercultural food issues, etiquette, expressiveness, Germans, structured, okay. Keep going, taking things too personally. Yeah, this story to me is not really directly related to any of those big dimensions that I can use from, because this story can go anywhere. It has a lot of room for travel, but to me, it's primarily perception. Our perceptions, the way we expect the world supposed to work, that's the world we live in. You know, as we have a very famous saying, what is that? What we see is what is in our head, what we want to see. And she was so focused that her fish has bones, she did not even recognize our fish have bones as well, because her perception was, if she's putting that much effort into figuring out the bones in this fish, these people are just laughing and eating and talking, not doing any effort. They must not have any. Okay. Cook to judgment instead of curiosity. Yeah. Good. Cultural sensitivity, stress level. Okay, we are at 32 after. We have 3 more minutes, so we can do one more story. Let me see. Okay, we haven't done one on this one yet. Okay, so let's do this one, and then we can move on. So in one of my last job at ExxonMobil, I had a job called Culture Change Advisor. So I got to travel to many countries across the world, meeting with the supervisors in the IT department and talking to them what they can do to have the new vision of customer service to be implemented in their teams. And I was getting lots of feedback from Argentina to Brazil to Thailand, and also from Singapore and several European countries as well. I was in KL, Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia. and the room was full of supervisors, and I was not getting any feedback. After I finished my presentation, that last like hour, that was their time to give me feedback and talk, they were quiet, not much interaction. And I kept thinking, what went wrong? Finally, I found out there was a manager in the room, which was a lot higher than all those people. I ended up doing another session for that group, and I did not invite the manager. And those people talk. They don't want to shut up. Okay, so I'm going to say here. So that was number 7. I would say KL. Okay, go ahead and type it in. Okay. Okay, let's see what we got. Power distance, yes. So I normally, this is a newer story. I haven't used a lot of my program, but I would mainly use them for power distance. That's what I would normally do. Because hierarchy, power distance, PD, yeah, most of you are saying that. Face, fear of standing out, exactly, it's hierarchical power distance. Before we go to the breakout rooms, anyone has any comments or questions? Let me put it also here, what you will do in breakout rooms, in addition to, I'm saying it. So these are your directions for breakout rooms. As I mentioned earlier, what would happen in breakout rooms is you'll have 2 to 3 of you will be there. If you are 2, then you can just go back and forth. 2 of you. If you're 3, then you can really do that. So let me give you 18 minutes. Let me mute all. Okay. And I haven't started the room, open the rooms yet. So let me just make sure everything looks good. So you'll have 18 minutes. Anyone has any questions before I open the breakout rooms? All good? Yes? Okay, I'm opening the rooms. Feel free to ask me to come and visit you. You have an option up there on the top to get help. However, I'll try to come and visit you in your rooms as well.
Syed, should I pause recording?
It's up to you. Doesn't matter, Curtis, either way. Looks like everyone is back. So please go ahead and start typing in chat your experience in the breakout rooms. So let me type that in chat up on the top. What was your experience in the breakout room? Share something. What you like, what you dislike, what went well. Were you able to come up with your stories? Were you able to share some stories? As you are typing, if someone would like to speak up or have a question, feel free to do that. You can use the reactions if too many people ask questions at the same time. Let me start reading some of the answers there. Yeah, You're right, Brett. Stories are a good way to break the ice, that's for sure. Natalia loved it. Curtis, lots of fun, engaging, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, great mix of culture. I think this profession of intercultural communication does attract people who do have more than one cultural experience to begin with, because that's the edge they have that they can share with other people. So that makes sense. Don't assume about a culture, even yours is similar. Yeah. Excellent. Yes. go
Maybe
ahead.
one maybe difference between what we did in the forum and in the small group. I think in the small group I was just talking.
Yes.
So I haven't sharpened the story about what I want to tell with it. So it didn't.
Yes.
It was still quite open. I think this was a difference which I quite experienced from. Okay, to use my story, it's good to break the ice or something, but I need to sharpen it a little bit because it's going in so many directions, kind of, and it's a mess in the end. Yeah. So this
yes, you are very correct, Michael. What I normally did was I write it down, and then the idea is to remove everything that I can remove to make it shorter and shorter and shorter. So I used to write them down, and because in the United States we don't have a lot of time. You know, if I'm somewhere in Asia where I'm given more time, but in the US time is always so important. So you are right. It's very easy to go on, and then the other thing is if we go on and on, then so many cultural dimensions start playing a role. It's hard for them to focus on one thing that you want to focus on. So yes, I think it just takes a little time and experience, but if you practice it and you take it seriously, I think you can shorten it down a little bit. Good feedback. You're very correct. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions, remarks, or are you just dying to share your story? Let me read some of the comments. I hope you are reading some of the feedback that you are getting. Honing on stories makes help. Yeah, makes help. Good. Okay, that's going well. So if you have more questions, feel free to ask. But let me go ahead and share some of the things that I do for stories. So let me share my screen here. And someone has a hand up. Peter, go ahead and share what you like to say. Then I will share my screen. Peter? Oh, you're there. Yes.
Yeah. What I found interesting in the group, but also in the fact really
your sound is coming a little choppy, on off. I think
yeah, I'll stop then. I'll just listen. I can hear you guys fine. It's all right. I'll listen.
Oh, now I can hear you okay at the end. You want to try one more time, or maybe type the whole thing in chat?
Yeah, I was struck when you were telling your stories about. Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Yes, it's good now. It's good now. Yes.
I was struck by the lack of unanimity about the interpretation of the stories.
Yes.
There were quite a lot of different varieties, and also in the group the dimensions were not applicable at all, really, apart the conventional dimensions. And for me, it pointed out the limitations of conventional dimensions.
That is true. That is true.
We tend to be limited by these boxes that we read about and that have been that we take for granted and use, but actually they are limited in their applicability and usefulness, and we need to go a bit further.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had one way of using the story, but someone can turn it around and use it for something else. There are so many dimensions because we are talking about human behavior. We are not talking about 2 + 2. So it's very gray area. It's not black and white area. You're right. You're right. However, story, if they can relate to it, they will remember the concept you taught them way better. I still remember people come to me from ExxonMobil because 25 years ago, I don't remember them, but they say, I remember your bathroom story in Texas Christian University. It just left an impression for them, but they don't remember anything else. So I don't know if it's any good or not. Okay, so let me share my top 10. But before I do that, let me bring this up. I will teach you a little technique how to annotate. So I am sharing this thing and I'm showing you how you can use annotation. So go ahead and follow instructions as you see on this PowerPoint and put a heart on this page. So if you move your cursor a little bit on the middle top of your screen, you will see view options. And then you come down and you click annotate. This annotation bar appears, and annotation bar, you click stamp, number 3. And then number 4, you choose heart, and you can put heart anywhere on this page. I can see a bunch of hearts, but maybe done by the same person because they're all so much together. Everyone tries to put some hearts on this page, so I know how to use it. Because when I show you my top 10, I will ask you to choose your top 5 and put a heart on that line only. Does anyone have any questions about placing a heart via annotation? Ellen, you are good, or do you have a question? Okay, so move your cursor on your screen. When you move your cursor up on the top, it says who is talking, whose screen you are viewing, and next to it, there's a button called View Options. It shows up?
Yeah, I did that, and I clicked on it, but I'm the one who drew that yellow line. I clicked on the heart, and it didn't draw anything. It just made a tiny little dot. So I don't know. I'm just doing something wrong.
Okay. I'm trying as long as you can do something, that's fine. But if you click stamp, you get those 6 items. If you click the heart, then anytime you click, heart will appear. If you click question mark, then anytime you click, question mark will appear. Okay, so let's go on to the, let me first get and clean this up first. Annotate, clear all drawings. Okay, go ahead and read these 10 items and choose your top 5. Choose your top 5 and put heart on that line to right of the text or left of the text in that area only. So it's very clear which item you are choosing. So choose 5 out of these 10. So I just want to see what resonates with you. This is just my sneaky way for you to make sure you read all 10 of them. So this is what I came up with. I don't have any formal storytelling training. I love telling stories in my program, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I noticed that the knowledge retention, content retention tends to be higher when some emotions are involved instead of just the cognitive brain working. You bring a little bit of the heart and the feelings in it. So I normally go for the personal. If I don't have a personal, I will tell story of someone that I personally know. That's the next level. If that doesn't work out, something I read in a book or something I saw in a movie, then it goes beyond that. Then maybe someone else told me the story. But people and you can relate the best when the story happens to you. And that's the reason I talk about this topic, because I'm not only sharing the concept that I didn't come up with, Edward Hall came up or Hofstede came up with it, but I can relate to it because it happens to me. It happened to me. So it has to be relevant to your topic, as we said. And that's the third point that we were talking earlier on. It has to be short and to the point. Otherwise, it's too long. It goes on, and then it's very hard. The other thing is, as stories happen to me, I document them. So I have an inventory of my stories, and I also classify them based on cultural values. Of course, many stories has many cultural values in it, but I have to choose what, in my mind, how I relate to it, what is the dominant one. And I would use, for example, all the stories I share, I have documented them in which value I will use them for. And also track of the story usage. For example, I mentioned I have 4 programs, each one cultural dimension. There are groups. I have given all of those programs, 4 programs to them. So I kept the stories separate. These are, even though stories could be used for other programs, but this is how I designed it. So I have a list of stories that I will remember. It goes with this presentation, not with the other presentation, because I don't want them to be hearing the same thing again and again. I wanted to keep it new and fresh for the attendees. I'm used to, and my main stories, I still write down and rehearse them ahead of time with vocal variety and gestures. Nowadays, I'm sitting in front of the computer, but in the old days or year before last year, we were standing in front of people. I still sometimes, for those stories, I really want to do a demo, I stand up. I don't do my virtual program sitting. I will do standing so I can move around and show the body movement and the gestures and all that, because that stuff is important to me. Of course, I mentioned that next one, and of course, pauses are important. If you're trying to create a suspense and you want to give the punchline, and then before the punchline, you want to have a pause, and all that really comes out when you practice. So you guys are all over the place. Almost every one of them has been clicked once. The number 1 looks like got the most votes, and then looks like number 9 got lots of votes as well. And let me stop sharing. Feel free to snap picture of this page. I will also, I put in the past on LinkedIn. I'll put it back LinkedIn as well. And we have 12:08. We are open for any questions. As you are thinking of the questions, let me also put this in chat. Go ahead. We have 7 minutes officially left for the session. So what did you get out of this session today? Please provide some feedback. What did you get out of this session today? So.
Can we just say it, or do we have to write it?
Please chat, put it in chat so I have a good documentation. But if you are done typing it, please speak up. Anyone can speak up anytime. Please go ahead and do that. Only have a few minutes left. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
What would be the best resource that you recommend for the definitions of this terminology that we have been talking about? Because I also find that we have different perceptions of what each of those terms mean or look like or sound like. So what resource do you think it would be the most appropriate?
Okay, so depending upon the concept, so if you are thinking of high versus low context, which is originally made by Edward Hall. So his book is called Beyond Culture. If you want to go to the source, where it came from, where it all got started, it's called high context versus low context. Edward Hall, in his book Beyond Culture, is the first person who ever talked about that. He's an American anthropologist, and he wrote this book in the 60s. However, since then, many people use simpler word called direct indirect. So when they say direct indirect communication style, they are really talking about high context versus low context. And then many of the profiles I'm seeing right now available, there are so many out there, but people can take an assessment and it tells them where they are on a line between direct and indirect. They are using direct indirect, they are using explicit implicit, they are using high-low context. So more you read, the more you will see the variation. However, there are hundreds and thousands of books are available, and each author sometimes wants to become a little different, and they come up with their own terms. So that's a high-low context. On individualism, collectivism, culture and organization, Hofstede, is the one who first used it, individualism, collectivism, and that simply means group-oriented, family-oriented versus individual-oriented. But he's the one who first started. But if you really want to read more about that, I recommend reading this book from Harry Triandus. He is the best one, where he is bringing lots of research about this particular cultural difference. When you talk about hierarchy, again, the officially term came from Hofstede, called power distance, large power distance, small power distance. But in general, people just use the word hierarchy or more respect for the people higher. But if you want to go back to where it started from, then this is the book. That would be if you're talking about time differences, originally it was monochronic versus polychronic, and it came from The Dance of Life from Edward Hall. However, if you want to read a lot more, since then it has taken off. For example, A Geography of Time, he calls them event time. So event has a time to start and time to end. When right people are there, then the event begins. When job is done, event ends. Event has no concept of what time is supposed to start, what time it's supposed to end. So then there are a huge amount of variations from polychronic versus monochronic.
What's the title of that one that you are showing right now?
It's right there, Geography of Time. But the word polychronic, monochronic was the original word. First, when the time was discussed, it really came from Edward Hall, The Dance of Life.
Thanks.
So once you get into the field and you start reading, you will see that in lots of books. I know there are several people in the room who has a lot more knowledge about all this than I do. Feel free to add something for Natalia.
I would just to add that obviously what you mentioned, Syed, this is one of the best books if you want to start on it.
Yeah,
he's the pioneer. Obviously, yeah. Hofstede, it's wonderful. Hofstede wrote it in 1955 when he worked for IBM, and he did all the studies, and they're still relevant. But from the philosophical stuff,
yeah,
and more from the anthropology perspective, which this is basically where Hall comes. You know, he was an anthropologist. It's very interesting. Definitely Hofstede. For me, Hofstede is the I don't know. It's the man because he took it from the business perspective. Okay.
Correct. And also, Natalia, right now there's a lot of stuff on Google, internet, and also lots of videos on YouTube. So if you just type Hofstede power distance, yeah, you got it. Culture and organization, you have that. Yeah. You have the different version.
The reason why I was asking is because it seems that depending who I'm talking with in what field, the terminology slightly changes.
Yes.
And people are referring to the same concepts with different terminology.
Yes.
I'm coming, for example, from the educational field. Concepts as, like, for example, global education or intercultural education and things like that. I think that is making people getting confused, me myself included. So I was wondering if somebody mentioned that has a like not a book, like a resource where all those terms were defined, and that's what I'm looking for, like something where could like limit the framework of the terminology that we are using when we are referring to this cultural understanding. So I was curious to know if you were following a specific framework or if we are just kind of like, you know, like contributing with the terminology.
Yeah. By the time someone will write a book for terminology, another author will come up with 10 more words, because that's how you become famous after you did work for many, many years. And for example, particularism and that one was not even there. Universalism when early on, but you can go back in when it all started in the 50s and 60s, you can see what the terms were. But then later on, every new author comes up with new ideas, and depending upon how well they do in the marketplace, their term becomes the popular term.
I think some of these terms can also I change terms if I'm working with somebody from a particular language, because the translation and context of those terms may not relate in all terms across from English. So
yeah, you're right. I was looking at another interesting book, but yeah, it's hard to find. There are too many books there. Yeah, but if you go back, you can see the way terms, for example, the one we don't hear very often is doing versus being. That was also decided way back, man versus nature, or that's another one. So there are quite a few terms out there. We have taken our full time is 16 after. If you got to run, please run and go to your next important task. If you have any questions or you want to ask questions to other people who are in line, please feel. I have a hand up from Lamia. Please go ahead. I cannot hear you, Lamia. You are on mute.
Unmute. Okay. So let me tell you first that I remember working with EFS. I completely forgot Dr. Mustafa. Yes. Yes, absolutely. But that was a long time ago, so it just completely slipped off my mind.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
But then my main question now for you is, during your storytelling sessions, how do you make sure, or what is the way that you use to, what if one of the stories that you tell is not appealing to your audience, to your clients? How do you make them seem interesting? How do you tell them, for example, wake up and be interactive with me? And because it's quite tricky,
Yes.
And allow me to use an example which might or might not be relevant, but imagine someone doing stand-up comedy and nobody's laughing.
Yes.
And when storytelling, it's all about being interactive, right? You have to have this energy in the room.
Yes,
that could be tricky.
Yeah, it sure is tricky. I think the other focus I have is, and also it's more of an American thing than some of the other countries, is interaction is considered a lot more important. So don't go hide behind the podium and have your notes written or reading PowerPoint slides. If you do that, then it's boring, and you tell stories, no one laughs. I mean, they're just all serious because they think you are teaching something serious. I normally do is to create small chunks and let them have a lot of interactions. And I create the atmosphere up front that I show my vulnerabilities. I tell stories where I'm the stupid one. I look dumb. And so then their guards come down. They become more relaxed. And then I allow them often time to interact with each other, interact with me. And most of the time, my stories work out just fine. If they don't, they don't. It's life. It happens.
Yeah.
You move on to the next one.
Right.
You can't control other people's emotions and feelings. All you can do is to, if you don't see any reaction, then next time I may not use that one. I'll try another one. You just keep trying. Yeah. And over the years, you notice by mistake you were pausing and they laughed certain time, then you recognize, oh my God, next time it'll be good to pause there because that time I did it accidentally and they laughed.
I got it.
You learn over the years. Yeah, you learn over the years.
Thanks.
Good question. Any other comments, questions? We have diehard people here. They're still here. You can have questions for someone else in the room as well, because we have Michael and others who have been doing this stuff for a long time. So Jorge and Brett, and comments, questions?
Well, the only comment that I really have, and like it's not written on the wall or in stone, and my experience is when you do intercultural, cross-cultural management, it's to know yourself too.
Exactly. Very much.
When I do a training, I always tell people or tell my clients, let's do the first thing, let's know yourself better, because that's what you're going to be projecting, okay? And then with the preconceived concepts and stuff like that. And I'll tell them, then I go to the storytelling, when my experiences in, let's say, in North Africa, the way the family works with the business, my perspective was completely different coming from the Western world. But the most important thing is learn yourself. And for the Americans that are here, there's a really good book that I tend to use a lot. It's called Working with Americans. And I learned a lot of that book, you know, when I saw myself. And that's very, very, very important. And specifically the what the Europeans feel about Americans, about this fictitious friendship, you know. Well, we are more, it took me years to someone to get invited in Portugal to his house, where in the US, they walk around there and they say hello to you and then make a big conversation and continue walking, you know. So you have to learn yourself, know yourself before you approach other folks.
So talking about, I really like Craig Story's new book called Americans at Work.
Okay.
That's really good. However, that's focusing on the work side. And I hope most of you know Craig Story very well. I have been using his material, for example, cross-cultural dialogues. In all of my programs, I have his dialogues where people, I ask them to read it and then they interpret it. And then that's how I normally create interaction. But when I first came to this country 39 years ago, this was the book handed to me as an international student. It's really written, it's very simple, easy. Now that one, I have it as well. So this is more scholarly work. Yes, that's more scholarly, more with references. If you really want to know deep culture, American culture, then this is the one I use. This is the second edition. I have the first edition as well, but international students, just very easy to read, get the idea, and living in the USA is in the same category. American Ways is also very good as well. Well, American Ways, this was the older version, and that's the newer, lot thicker version they came up with. So you are very correct. Similar to, you know, whatever country we are originally from, it's really good idea to sit and read about our own culture, because we were never told, we were being taught a culture. We were taught this is how the world works. This is the way you do it. And no one said, you know, there are 100 different ways to doing it. I'm just teaching you one. No, we were told this is the way. So when we read it, our own culture, we recognize, oh my God, this is what they're telling us, telling others about us.
So for the group that's still hanging in there, Brett has something to share.
Yes, Brett, please.
Oh, you know, so I guess we can assume that different cultures are different if we speak different languages. But I love this. This is only a little book, but it's called A Fair Go for All: Australian American Interactions.
Okay.
This is from George Renwick.
Can you say one more time? A fair
go for all.
A fair go for all. Okay.
This is written by George Renwick. It's quite a small book, but he wrote it like 30 years ago. But it's so relevant even today.
Is it the same George Renwick who specializes in China now? It's a different George Renwick.
This is George. I mean, who used to go to SIC, the Intercultural
Institute.
Absolutely.
I took several classes from him.
So George,
but he established himself as a Chinese specialist.
Yeah.
But I didn't know he wrote a book. He never mentioned he wrote a book about Australia so long ago.
He mentioned this to me when we were at the Institute once, and he said, I wrote a book about Australia a number of years ago. And I often joke with people, my clients, especially when they are from a common, if they're from a common language, I will say, here's a classic example where George wrote this book, and there are 3 chapters to this book. There's the introduction, there's the introduction, and that's a short introduction. There's the similarities. That's about 2.5 pages. And then the rest of, and the third chapter is differences, and that's 72 pages.
Wow.
And that's between Australia and the US. And, you know, I learned so much. You know, I kind of knew this when I came to this country, because I made the mistakes, because I brought my business here and I made the mistakes. But once I saw this, I said, George, where were you when I first came here? This would have saved me a lot.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. When I work in Australia and then I work in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, both colonized by the same people, 1 hour away, and you cannot see the difference, the Kiwis between the Australians.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is I hope many of you know about the Culture Smart series. It says Culture Smart.
Yeah.
And they have
good.
quite a few countries, and they also have Australia.
Yeah, very good.
As well. Also, I believe Australia should also be in a Culture Shock series as well, right? The Culture Shock series, Culture Smart, and the Passport series. So the good news today is if you are doing culture specific program, you can easily find, when I was doing stuff for on German culture and French culture, quite a few good books are also there. If any of you ever need a reference or something of some of the books, I'll be more than happy to share.
You said, I'm so sorry, I'm trying to catch everything that you all are sharing. You said Culture Smart, which I found it. What was the other resource that you recommended?
Okay, so Culture Smart is a series. If you go Amazon,
I found it. The other one that
so
you
that
mentioned?
other one is, let me grab one. So this series is called Culture Shock.
Yep.
It not only covers the culture, but it also covers how to live there. But the cultural information is not as strong as you would find in American cultural pattern, but it goes a little bit on the banking as well. But the culture stuff is still very good. So they have the largest selection in terms of number of books. So I have like maybe 30 of them, but I think more than 100 might be there. The Culture Smart is the second largest I have seen. The two others is, let me grab something and see. So, okay. This is smaller. It's more only in Europe. And the word way is afterward, the French way, the German way, the way. And that's also thin book. It's not very big, huge. And then there is a Passport series. Passport is really small. Passport France, for example.
Which one, what series would you recommend for upper school students out of the 4 that you mentioned?
Just for, okay. How much time would you have to cover the country? How much time are they going to spend on it?
Right now, there is not any time assigned. So I'm developing every single program that relates to intercultural competency in like.
You can go and do enough research in Google and get enough information out.
Yeah.
You don't even need a book for that.
Yeah.
But if you are really seriously putting something together very big, I would start with Culture Shock. That gives you flavor for lots of different things. If it's available. If Culture Smart, that country is available in Culture Smart, try that. Depends what is available, you know. Any one of them are going to be fine. They all are really not tourism books, because that's how we have to differentiate. You know, tourism, they are focusing on food and clothing and, you know, on travel. But these are, originally, there's another Natalia trick. If it says Intercultural Press anywhere, it does not exist. But Intercultural Press used to be the primary publishing house that provided book on intercultural communication. And many of them, all original ones from the US, still have Intercultural Press on them. But now I think someone else bought them about 10, 15 years ago. But you can still find Intercultural Press. Some of the stuff I shared is come from Intercultural Press. But those are really written for people like you and I who teach this stuff, versus the regular, the consumer. The Culture Shock is not written for trainers, you know, it is written more for general public.
Syed?
Yes.
I have an offer. If I'm not going to ask you permission before I share it. You know the Globe Smart profile?
Yes, very much. I actually train on them in ExxonMobil.
Okay.
I brought them in. I trained people on it for 10, 15. We got it about early 2000.
Okay. So would you mind me sharing an access code for the full access with everyone? And